Hey, welcome back to Score on Business, and I, of course, am still Pete, and Kris Kelso still with us here. So, Kris, what is one of the biggest challenges you see business leaders facing as they build their teams?
I think one of the areas that doesn't get enough focus and is underrated sometimes is the importance of building an environment of trust. Now, if you think about the importance that trust plays in our lives, there's a lot of inefficiency in our world because of a lack of trust.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If you think about things like when you buy a house, right? You have to sign all these papers, and I remember buying a house and I had to sign a paper saying I had signed the other paper.
Yeah.
And we have all this complexity from simple things like locks on our doors and passcodes to really complex contracts and things that are all about a lack of trust. And I'm in no way saying we can eliminate all of those things in our world,
Right.
but the point is that trust is the grease that eliminates frictions and will help your organization to operate efficiently. And when you don't have trust, there's a lot of effort spent, looking over people's shoulders and double checking and lots of checks and balances. When you have trust, you can really move fast and rapidly. And so I think leaders have to be really intentional about creating a culture that builds trust and protects trust voraciously.
So, is there a particular tool or technique that you would recommend to help leaders build trust among their team?
Yeah, trust is not easily built. It's a lot more easy to destroy trust than it is to create it. And so it takes time, but there's a couple of ways that you can build trust, help to speed the development of trust. And one of them that I've used really effectively is taking people through a personality assessment. Now, there's all kinds of different assessments people have seen from DISC and Myers-Briggs and StrengthsFinder, and they all have different pros and cons and value. But taking your team through a process like that can really help people to understand one another better. You learn a lot about yourself going through that process, but equally valuable is learning about the differences between different personalities and beginning to recognize and value those differences rather than battle against them. If you think about in marriage, oftentimes opposites attract, different personalities are attracted to one another, and then they start working to try to change each other to become more like them. And the truth is, if you ever change your spouse to be like you probably wouldn't care for them as much as you did anymore, because you've already got yourself. And the same is true in business. When we don't understand and value the differences between personalities, we battle against those differences rather than leveraging for the strengths that they are. So taking time to educate and take teams through a process like that, which can really be fun and engaging. It builds camaraderie, but it also helps to foster that environment of trust when people understand one another.
So, one of the profiles I have done is DISC, and I think you work with that sometimes. Can you share an example, no need to name names, but where you've used the DISC profile and how that helped build trust?
Yeah, so the DISC profile in particular I like because the science behind it goes back to somewhere around 400 BC. It's not a 20th century invention. Now we've developed really good ways to assess those, but when you get someone who is a high I, that's a very extroverted, very people-oriented, very social person, and then they're working alongside someone who is very low on the I scale or a high C, they're not gonna attack things and approach things in the same way. And if they're trying to cooperate or collaborate and don't understand one another, they're going to be battling each other. But once they understand the value of those differences, not only can they work better together, but they can figure out how to separate the work and put each person in a position where they're working in their strengths rather than in their weaknesses. And often when you're doing a job that's not suited to your personality, that's where you experience a lot of stress in your work. And so when I see people who are adapting their behavior or trying to be a different person in order to fulfill their requirements of their job, that job is often very stressful, not because of the job itself, but simply because the person is not well suited. And so when everybody can understand who's suited to do what kind of work, and everyone can sort of fall into those sweet spots of how they operate, then things work a lot more smoothly and people get along a lot better in the process.
And people can recognize the differences with each other and kind of embrace that.
Exactly.
So what's a way you've seen leaders destroy trust?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to destroy trust.
Yes.
I remember in particular a new leader came into an organization where my firm was consulting, and so we were sitting in on a leadership meeting, and this new leader came in and was talking about some of the dysfunction and some of the issues that the team had, and there was a big lack of trust in the organization, in the team. And he said, we have got to be able to trust each other, and trust begins now. And people kind of looked around the room like, you can't just declare trust. And what he effectively did is he actually eroded his own credibility because everybody immediately knew that he was going to set unrealistic goals and that he was expecting them to just change their behavior and create something like trust that has to be really fostered and developed out of nowhere. And so needless to say, he wasn't there very long. He didn't last very well in that organization.
Well,
and
speaking
some
of
had to change.
folks who might be in the wrong role, perhaps he was.
Yes,
but,
yeah.
Hey, Kris, we're about out of time now, so thank you so much for being
you're welcome,
here.
Pete. I enjoyed
always
it,
good
as
to
always.
Have you.
Yeah,
okay,
thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back. You killed it, like always.
Thanks.